Welcome to the very first Prolific Wisdom author interview. We have Mike Smith, who is the VP of Revenue Platforms and Operations at Hearst Magazine's Digital Media, and he has just written a fantastic book called Targeted. So welcome to the interview, Mike.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here, Mark.
So you're in the business of monetizing online content. What's working best for you now?
What's working best is that we have a multi-channel sales approach to monetizing our content. We have a large and very capable and forward-thinking sales team, along with a team of folks who support that sales team to provide exceptional client service. And we also have set up an auction system where we sell our media in public and private marketplaces. Our sales team is involved principally with the private marketplace because increasingly their clients are interested in purchasing media both the traditional way through paper-based insertion IOs. I mean, they're electronic, but to illustrate the point that they are a more traditional way of buying, reserved inventory, sponsoring a section of the site between dates certain. That's all part of our traditional business, and it's big business for us. But also, these same advertisers, they want to bid for our audience. They want to find the audience that's of interest to them on our site and place bids to serve ads to them on a non-guaranteed basis. And so we've set up the infrastructure, the real-time bidding systems to accommodate that. And we do that in both a private marketplace setting for our bread and butter advertisers, as well as in a public marketplace setting for self-service advertisers. And that's what's working best for us right now.
I say one of the conclusions from after having read the book is that a particular ad technology that's really worthwhile focusing on is display real-time bidding retargeting. Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. So I'll separate, although they're related, but I'll separate in my answer real-time bidding from retargeting. So retargeting has been a technique. It's also sometimes referred to as remarketing. It's a technique where when you or I, the consumer, go to the website of a merchant, let's say Ford Motor Company, and let's say that you, Mark, were browsing around the Ford site and looking at an F-150 truck, and when you leave the Ford site, Ford wants to serve F-150 ads to you when you go to Esquire.com or caranddriver.com or roadandtrack.com or wherever you go on the internet. And when the technology exists, the retargeting technology exists to empower Ford to do exactly that, to retarget you, to serve their ads when they find you elsewhere after you've been to their own site. This is a very common digital marketing technique that we've all probably experienced, having been to site A and then seeing ads for site A when we are elsewhere. That's retargeting. That's been around for a long time and it works very effectively. Real-time bidding is not required for that. However, real-time bidding can certainly empower that functionality in ways that never before existed. So what, therefore, is real-time bidding? Well, real-time bidding is quite magical, actually. It's been developed over approximately the last 5 years. It's still very new, although it is growing fast. And it basically works like this. When you or I go to a web page, let's say, Mark, you go to Esquire.com. So you open your browser on your tablet or your laptop, and you type in www.esquire.com, enter. While you wait for that Esquire page to load in your browser, which takes approximately a second on a typical website, 1 second, Within 200 milliseconds of that second, unbeknownst to most of us, an auction's conducted. Hundreds of bidders place their best bid for you, Mark. And they've been tracking you around the internet. So they know, or their computers know, their computer algorithms compute what your attention is worth in that moment, in that context. And so these hundreds of ad tech companies on behalf of thousands of advertisers, they all in the instant while you're waiting for the page to load, place a bid. The highest bidder wins the auction and gets to place an ad in front of you. That's called real-time bidding. And it's magical because it empowers the advertiser to place a value on your attention, to price, to come up with the appropriate price for you in the moment, as opposed to negotiating price weeks or months in advance, which is how the traditional business works. And so when a buyer can assign price in the instant, the marketplace can flourish because fair value is assumed to occur at all times. And so that's essentially real-time bidding. And it's all pervasive. It happens to all of us, and it's unbeknownst to most of us. And it was, frankly, the motivation behind my interest in writing Targeted, which took 4 years to develop. I wanted to make accessible to the general interest reader, and certainly folks in the digital marketing sector, the history of what led to this innovation, and also to go deep on how the innovation actually works. But that's the difference between the two, and I think real-time bidding is quite remarkable, and it will affect advertising for a long, long time in all forms of advertising.
It certainly seems to be making the market a lot more fair and efficient, so it was very good to learn more about this technology. I've got some questions from some of the folks in the Prolific Wisdom community, by the way, Vikram Banerjee and Boris Siminarov specifically. So they've asked, imagine you're starting a new online magazine. How would you set up to monetize most effectively for brand advertisers with a brand spanking new magazine?
Well, the auction systems are an important part of any media startup. So media startups, pure play digital media startups, as they're called, commonly called, most, if not all, are using auction systems to sell at least some of their media. There are companies that are, in fact, selling all of their media this way. So the only way to buy advertising on these properties is through the auction systems, through real-time bidding. But it's really a question for the entrepreneur if she or he wants to build a sales organization to sell, for example, custom content or native advertising. Those types of ad formats, which are also flourishing, are not yet fully auctionable. Some are. You can buy native advertising in an auction on Yahoo, for example, but in traditional publishing environments, and also with startup publishers, that's less common.
Thank you. So what would you say is the one thing that you missed from the book that now you would add in another edition?
Well, as I developed the book, because the digital media industry moves so quickly, has a reputation for constant change. Throughout the 4 years, so many friends and colleagues rightly said, how could you possibly write a book about this topic? Because by the time you hit the publish date, everything changes. And that's only partly true. There are fundamentals that are worth covering, which is indeed what I try to do. But of course, my colleagues and friends are correct. There are changes that happen in the news. The other day, Yahoo decided to shut down their exchange. Who were the exchange operators? Well, Google's the biggest one, and Yahoo had a very large one after they acquired Right Media in 2007. Well, Yahoo sunsetted Right Media on Friday of last week, I believe it was. And so you can't cover these events in the book, even though I did indeed dedicate a very important chapter to Right Media's development. It doesn't make the chapter in any way irrelevant. Right Media and its founder and also its CEO really, in my view, pioneered real-time bidding. So I shared that story. That's still super relevant for folks who would have an interest in knowing the origins of these innovations. But I'm not able to cover news events that happen after the book is published naturally. So
that was a wonderful overview. So another question from the community. What's the biggest lesson and insight from the book that you could summarize in one sentence?
That data, and therefore data scientists, are critically important to advertising and digital media going forward.
Gotcha. And the natural progression from the last two questions is, do you have another book in the works, possibly planned for the future? What would you like to write about next?
The next topic I would write about would either be, or perhaps be, a hybrid of data and privacy. I dedicated, over the course of the 4 years, I found that I spent the most time on the data chapter and the privacy chapter. I felt that I wanted to, again, make accessible to the general interest reader just how tracked we are on the internet, and to share with the reader the techniques that are employed to track us so that we can be targeted. I mean, tracking and targeting in certain contexts can have very negative connotations, in particular in the privacy context. And I thought if I could do a good job of educating the reader on the kinds of companies that do the tracking on behalf of advertisers and mechanically how it's done, which I tried to do throughout the book, so that the consumer who uses the internet, which is pretty much all of us, can be more informed about the trade-offs. So I would contemplate, and am contemplating, writing a book that goes into privacy in far greater detail, and necessarily data, the tracking of our behavior and activity in the digital realm is fundamental to that.
Well, we would certainly like to get our mittens onto the new book when it is available for review. So Mike Smith, you're the VP Revenue Platforms and Operations at Hearst Magazine's Digital Media. We've reviewed Targeted and its recommended reading, and actually further, for anyone involved in online media, it's essential reading. So we really appreciate your book. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to Vikram and Boris as well. I'm grateful to you.